could resolve this issue. And I know for a fact that there have been attempts, Mr. Speaker, not just this time, but previously. I know for a fact, Mr. Speaker, that there have been occasions where either religious leaders, friends, people from business circles, Mr. Speaker, have attempted actually to mediate through some of these conflicts. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, instead of getting better, things have gotten worse. What is the essence of this session that we are having? Mr. Speaker, after listening through an impeachment process, the Senate sits as a jury to make a decision whether to find guilty or acquit. But like has been observed many times, and I have reminded this House on all the occasions when I have moved impeachment motions the last few years, Mr. Speaker, is an impeachment is political and legal conjoined together. It's about political accountability. It's about legal consequences of our actions as well, Mr. Speaker. There are political challenges, Mr. Speaker, that must be addressed. There are legal issues that have been raised as well, Mr. Speaker, which I want to believe when my colleague senators get the chance to address this House and convince each other. Perhaps people are watching and wondering, what is it that senators are doing at this hour? I believe that all the 67 of us that are here have had occasion to peruse through the evidence, listen, and this is a chance to share your thoughts about what you think and what is the proposed solution. I'm not sure, Mr. Speaker, whether my colleague senators will find the Deputy President guilty on all the 11 charges, or one, or two, legally speaker, or none. Mr. Speaker, I'm being quickly reminded by my colleague here that is possible. And that is fine, because it is based on what you had, what your mind is convinced about these particular charges that have been drawn, and what you think is best for this country, Mr. Speaker. I don't intend to be long, because I know, Mr. Speaker, we have agreed that we will do this not for a very long time. And I know there's so many of my colleagues that want to speak on this particular issue. But there are about 2 or 3 charges that I want to just focus my thoughts on, Mr. Speaker, and perhaps leave the rest to hear, to be convinced this way or the other by what my colleagues will pick. There is, Mr. Speaker, charge number 8, serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes by continuously misleading members of the public through false, malicious, divisive, and insightful remarks that are contrary to the provisions of Section 132 of the Penal Code and Section 29 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. We have institutions that are charged with the responsibility of making sure that we are a cohesive society, Mr. Speaker. By statute, actually, after the 2010 Constitution, we set up the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. And it was our sincere hope, Mr. Speaker, that that commission perhaps will help us, especially we that are leaders, learn better from our utterances and do things, say things that leave the rest of Kenyans feeling that they are proud patriots, that the things that we do make them feel at home in this republic. It's unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that despite this commission, for example, being funded by taxpayers, I have not seen them live up to their expectation. And perhaps part of the challenges that will emerge even after this impeachment process, Mr. Speaker, is to audit how some of these institutions continue to draw from the exchequer, yet not live up to their mandate. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I saw them issue the other day, I think, a statement saying, oh, if you carry out this impeachment process, it will divide the country. I want to tell that Reverend Kobe, I think his name is chairman, you better resign. I have never seen a public officer that is as disgraced as that gentleman. Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? I remember in our days, last time, Mr. Speaker, this is the same institution that was so vigilant that will ban us even from coining phrases like hatupangwingwi and say that those phrases are divisive to the country. But I've seen for the last 2 years, Mr. Speaker, these narratives and clips that we are being shown, being whipped and hurting Kenyans on a daily basis, and have kept quiet about it. But finally, when the National Assembly has moved to say that we must put a stop to this, they finally show up on stage and say, oh, this will divide Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, surely, don't Kenyans deserve better from their public institutions, Mr. Speaker? I hope, Mr. Speaker, that at the end, by the end of this particular exercise, all the commissioners of that particular institution, Mr. Speaker, will find it fit to resign so that we can have Kenyans who understand how we can build a more cohesive society than those that are gatekeepers of those that push divisive narratives, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been invited as well and have been challenged that on charge 10, that there is gross misconduct by openly or publicly insubordinating the president, who is the head of state and government. And I listened to one of the lawyers urge us and say, where is the complaint from the president? Surely, does the president need to complain to you, Senator Onyonka, to notice that there is a dysfunction in that particular office? That if there is a lack of symphony in action, in word, in deed, Madam Speaker, between the president and the deputy, and there is a continuous spat, such as what has been witnessed the other day, then constitutional consequences might follow, so that you clean up and have an institution that works for the greater interest of all the people of the Republic, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I know not everybody agrees with those of us that hold the view that the Senate has been sufficiently convinced by these charges, either one of them, all of them, or none that I say. But what I find difficult, Mr. Speaker, is to accept the proposal by those that want to reduce this House and claim that Parliament is a gathering of just a few people. And I have watched many people say that, pundits on the television, including none other than the Deputy President himself, who on many occasions, including last weekend in Embu, has said that his only faith is in the courts of the Republic of Kenya and nothing about this particular House. Mr. Speaker, perhaps it will be important for somebody to remind him, what is the history of Parliament? Parliament is a gathering of all Kenyans. I have said many times, Mr. Speaker, that because it is not possible for all the 50 million Kenyans to meet at one place and agree on issues, Mr. Speaker, they agreed to do so through their representatives, Article 2 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, a gathering of a House of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, cannot simply be wished away by being described that a few members either overturning or undermining the will of the people of Kenya. I believe Kenyans speak directly through the election or indirectly through their elected representatives, who are the people in the National Assembly, in the Senate, in our county assembly. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, when institutions of accountability are dispensing their constitutional mandate, such as what we are doing today, Mr. Speaker, if you respect our Constitution, then respect the outcome and the processes that have been initiated and concluded in Houses of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, just as you do with courts of law. And I appreciate, Mr. Speaker, that on many accounts, I know this process has attracted close to 30 petitions in our courts of law. And I agree with the learned judges that have, Mr. Speaker, made a determination that you allow Parliament to conclude on its processes such that anybody who's not satisfied with the outcome, Mr. Speaker, can exercise their right to appeal. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, in the interest of time and knowing that many of my colleagues want to speak to this particular issue, I want to conclude it at that and request that the Senate Minority Leader, retired Justice Stewart Mathare, the Senator for Kilifi, does go ahead and second this motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kwanza nataka kuunga mkono hii hoja ambayo inahusikana na ile kesi ambayo iko hapa ya kuweza kumngatua kwenye mamlaka naibu wa rais. Bwana Spika, katika kanuni zetu za kudumu kipengele cha 145 kinasimulia ama kinaongea juu ya vile rais ama naibu wa rais anaweza kuondolewa katika mamlaka. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza ni kwamba katika mashtaka haya yote yaliyoko mbele yetu, ukosefu wa nidhamu au heshima kwa Wakenya, Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kusikitisha kuona ya kwamba mtu kama naibu wa rais anaweza kusema Kenya ni kampuni, na kwamba Kenya pia vile vile iko na zile wanaita nafikiri zabuni amani shares, na kwamba ikiwa wewe hukuweza kufanya kitendo kama hicho alichokuwa wakitaka wao cha kupiga kura, basi wewe utangojea sana ili uweze kupata maendeleo. Bwana Spika, tukiangalia zaidi tunaona ya kwamba mtu akiwa naibu wa rais, yeye anakuwa kiungo muhimu sana cha kuweza kuunganisha taifa. Sasa wewe ukiwa kama naibu wa rais na umechaguliwa, kazi yako wewe, waliokupigia kura, ambao hawakukupigia kura, wewe maendeleo ni lazima yafike kwenye mashinani ya kote nchini. Na wewe ni ndugu, ni baba, ni babu, ni mzee wa nchi hii. Kila mahali unapokwenda unatakana kuheshimika katika nchi yetu. Lakini jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba, na sio mara moja, sio mara mbili, pengine ambapo pengine ulimi uliteleza, lakini ilikuwa ni kila siku mahali popote anapokwenda katika hii miaka miwili ambayo tumekuwa nayo katika uongozi wa Kenya Kwanza. Yeye akiwa kama naibu wa rais amekuwa anahubiri, hata amekwenda maeneo ya ndugu yangu, na mimi namjua huyu ni Mkenya kabisa, ndugu yangu Cherargei, akatamka tena maneno kama hayo mwisho. Na sisi tunasema kwamba maneno ya kuweza kutenganisha Wakenya ama kuwapatia kwamba sisi tumepata, kwa hiyo kule wale wengine watabaki. Nchi ya Kenya ni nchi moja, na kama kulipa ushuru, kila mtu analipa ushuru. Pia sisi kama watu tunaotoka pande za pwani, pande za Kisumu, pande za Western, pande za kila mahali katika Kenya, watu wote wanalipa ushuru. Kwa hiyo nafikiri kwa maoni yangu ni jambo la kusikitisha kuona ya kwamba naibu wa rais anaweza kutamka vile aliweza kutamka ya kwamba Kenya ni kampuni na lazima uwe na zabuni ya kutosha ili uweze kupata maendeleo. Bwana Spika, vile vile mimi nitaongea kwa upande ule ninaotoka wa Kilifi, mahali panaitwa Vipingo, mahali ambapo yeye ana hoteli ya familia. Manake hoteli ilikuwa ya ndugu yake, lakini hatimaye yeye akaweza kuichukua ile hoteli. Sitaenda kwa upande ule wa mwingine wa kwamba pengine ilikuwa ya nani, lakini ilikuwa ya hiyo familia. Kitu cha kusikitisha ni kimoja tu. Katika maendeleo yale ambayo tunahitaji sana ndani ya Kilifi ni barabara. Na mojawapo ambao sisi tulikuwa tunalalamika zaidi upande ule ni kwamba barabara iligeuzwa na ikatoka barabara ya kutoka Mombasa mpaka Malindi, katikati ikageuzwa na ikaenda ndani mpaka kwa hoteli ile inaitwa Vipingo Resort Limited or something like that, ikaenda mpaka kule. Hiyo ni mali ambayo ingekuwa ilifaidisha zaidi watu wa Kilifi, hususan kwenye wakulima na wafanyabiashara na wananchi kama kawaida kupata maendeleo ya kuona barabara hizo, lakini yeye akaigeuza na ikaenda kwake. Mimi mwenyewe nilipata nafasi ya kwenda huko, Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, utaona kwamba barabara inahepa Mikanju, inahepa mpaka Miembe ikienda kwenye hiyo hoteli, ambapo sio jinsia ya vile barabara huwa zinatengenezwa. Bwana Spika, hapo tukaona kwamba ni kiukaji wa nidhamu. Bwana Spika, vile vile ningependa kusema kwamba si sote ni watu ambao tunaamini kwamba kunaye Mungu, na ukimkosea Mungu yeye mwenyewe huwa anajua kuna wakati fulani atakuja kukuadhibu. Bwana Spika, tumeona ya kwamba wale ambao walikuwa wamekosewa hivi sasa kuna malipo ambayo yanaendelea. Bwana Spika, tukiangalia haya malipo ni kwamba imetokea kwamba zile mali zote, watoto wote wale wa yule ndugu yake mkubwa aliyefariki. Jambo la kusikitisha kuona ya kwamba mimi ama ndugu yangu yoyote hapa ndani ya Senate hatuombi, lakini ukifa kama mali yako haitakwenda kwa watoto wako, inaenda kwa ndugu yako na bibi yake na watoto wake. Tunaona hiyo pia ni ukosefu wa kuona nidhamu ndani ya familia, ambao wewe kama kiongozi wa familia unatakana uilinde na uitunze. Naona kwamba wameweza kupata maendeleo. Bwana Spika, ya mwisho ambao nataka kusema kwa hivi sasa ni kwamba wajane wanapolia Mwenyezi Mungu hujibu, na nafikiria wakati wa kujibu sasa umefika. Kwa hiyo siweze kulaumu mtu yote. Hapa ndani ya hili bunge tumeangalia, hakuna kwa upendeleo upande huu ama upande huu. Tunasema ya kwamba haki itendeke. Mwisho nataka kusema ya kwamba pia kuna ile ya kwamba ikiwa tuko katika timu kama wewe katika cabinet, vile vile Bwana Spika, tunaona ya kwamba katika yeye akiwa kama mmoja wapo wale watu ambao wanaketi katika kamati ile ya kuangalia katika nchi ya ujasusi, yale NIS, alitamka mambo ambayo yalikuwa hayafai ya kuweza kulaumu kiongozi wa ujasusi, ambapo haikuwa na maana yoyote. Kama kulikuwa kuna nia ya kusema kitendo kama hicho, angekuwa alimuita kamishna yule wa polisi IG, njoo hapa, na akamuita yule mkuu wa ujasusi, njoo hapa, na akaketisha pamoja. Je, wewe mkuu wa ujasusi uliweza kupeleka ripoti yako kwa mkuu wa polisi, ama akaulizwa yule akajibu akasema amepata ama hakupata? Lakini kwenda kwa mkutano wa hadhara na kuanza kusema mtu fulani hafanyi kazi ndani ya ofisi yake, hilo lilikuwa ni kosa kubwa sana, na ambalo huwezi kuficha siri ya yale yanayotendeka katika ujasusi, katika ile kazi zao za ujasusi. Bwana Spika, kwa vile mimi ninaona njia ambayo ameelekea na kazi zake hakuweza kuelekea kisawasawa, na mimi kwa maoni yangu, na najua ndio maoni ya wengi, nimeonelea kwamba hapa sababu hizi ambazo zililetwa ya kwamba aliweza kukosea utendakazi wake, aondolewe katika mamlaka. Naunga hoja hii. Asante Bwana Spika.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question. They're aware that the National Assembly on the 8th of October 2024 resolved with the support of 282 members, being at least 2/3 of all members of the National Assembly, that pursuant to the provisions of Article 145(2), as read with Article 151(b) and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Order 65(2) of the National Assembly Standing Orders, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, be removed from office by impeachment on the grounds specified in the special motion. Whereas by a letter reference NA/DLP/TBO/MTS/2024 into brackets 25, dated the 8th of October 2024, and received in the office of the Speaker of the Senate on the 9th of October 2024, and the Speaker of the National Assembly informed the Speaker of the Senate of the approval of the special motion by the National Assembly, and further forwarded to the Speaker of the Senate documents in evidence of the proceedings of the National Assembly. Further, whereas pursuant to Article 145, as read with Article 151(b) and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Orders 78 and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate had the National Assembly on the grounds for the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And further, whereas pursuant to Article 145, as read with Article 151(b) and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Orders 78 and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate also had His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, on the grounds of his proposed removal from office by impeachment on the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 145, as read with Article 150, 1B, and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Orders 78 and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate resolves to remove from office by impeachment His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, on the following grounds. 1. Gross violation of Articles 10, 2A, B, and C, 27.4, 731A, and 2B, 751C, and 129.2 of the Constitution, and Article 147.1 as read together with Article 131, 2C, and D of the Constitution. 2. Gross violation of Articles 147.1 and 152.1 of the Constitution by undermining the President and the Cabinet and the effective discharge of the national government's executive mandates. 3. Gross violation of Articles 6.2, 10, 2A, 174, 186.1, 189.1, and the 4th Schedule to the Constitution by undermining devolution. Gross violation of Article 60, 161 of the Constitution of the institutional and decisional independence of judges. 5. Gross violation of Articles 3.1 and 148.5A of the Constitution on the fidelity to the oath of office and allegiance. Number 6. Serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes under Sections 13.1A and 62 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act. Number 7. Serious reason to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed gross economic crimes under Section 45.1, 46, 47A, 3, and 48.1 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and Sections 2, 3, 4, and 7 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. Number 8, serious reason to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes by continuously misleading members of the public through false, malicious, divisive, and insightful remarks that are contrary to the provisions of Section 132 of the Penal Code and Section 29 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. Number 9, gross misconduct that is incompatible with the high calling and dignified status of the office of the Deputy President and a member of the Cabinet and the National Security Council. His Excellency the Deputy President has publicly attacked and undermined the work of the National Security Intelligence Service and its officers. Number 10, gross misconduct by openly or publicly insubordinating the President, who is the head of state and government. And number 11, gross misconduct by persistently bullying state and public officers. Now, honorable senators, the floor is open to debate. The Honorable Senator Fernandi, Senator Samson Cheranke. As we have already agreed, you have a maximum of 5 minutes. You need not take the maximum 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to say from the onset, this is very momentous. This is the true test of Constitution 2010, because in history we are used to impeaching governors, not the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, sir. On this process that has ongoing, Mr. Speaker, although, as I begin, I want to wish my brother and friend, Rigathi Gachagua, a quick recovery after that unfortunate incident. Mr. Speaker, the process largely has gone on well until the adherence of Article 50, Mr. Speaker, where we have not succeeded in giving fair hearing to the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker. The reading of Article 145, and I want to bring to the attention, 4, does not specify the timeline on which the Deputy President removal can be listened. It is only by the special committee that it provides for 10 days. So, Mr. Speaker, that was very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, in the principle that justice should not only be done, but to be seen to be done, Mr. Speaker. Many Kenyans are asking questions, Mr. Speaker, what really happened? Number three, Mr. Speaker, in observation, we didn't even allow state officers, a full-time governor, Mr. Speaker, to participate. This matter was decided in Constitutional Petition 204 of 2019, where state officers were barred by Justice Eric Ogola, Mr. Speaker. When you look at the issues, Mr. Speaker, because of limitation of time, on various grounds, like for example, on the grounds for renovation of the office of the Deputy President, the funds were appropriated by the National Assembly. Yet the same National Assembly is accusing the Deputy President, who is not even an accountant. The accountant is a different person, Mr. Speaker. Or even on the KEMSA issue, on the bully, in the grounds that they have been set, Mr. Speaker, they are saying that the Deputy President bullied KEMSA, Mr. Speaker, but there is no proof that that tender was awarded to the specified companies that were provided, Mr. Speaker. On even the aspect of devolution, the chairperson of intergovernmental IBEC is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. It is unfortunate that we are coming to circumvent the same law and accuse the Deputy President of undermining devolution, Mr. Speaker. Even on Kambini Vipingo road, Mr. Speaker, no one adduced the evidence that this road is either public or private, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the aspect, even on unexplained wealth, Mr. Speaker, you saw the mover did not give us a wealth declaration form from EACC to show us unexplained wealth of Deputy President, 5.2 billion, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the grounds that have been adduced before the House stands on the quicksand, Mr. Speaker. And if you realize, on the 11 grounds, the mover was on a fishing expedition, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I don't know, because they say, Mr. Speaker, even when you read, I know impeachment proceedings either political, because it is impeachable, because they are neither high crimes, criminal, but based on the test of probabilities, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and therefore, even when you look at many other aspects, Mr. Speaker, I want to challenge members, even as we go and vote, Mr. Speaker. If you see, as Francis Mboga, the play that was written in 1976, Mr. Speaker, they say, Mr. Speaker, if the madness of the nation disturbs a solitary mind, Mr. Speaker, it is not enough to say that man is mad, Mr. Speaker. Where we are at crossroads as a country, Mr. Speaker, whatever the outcome today, this country must move on, Mr. Speaker. We must proceed, Mr. Speaker. I know after today, the decision that we'll make today is not about the Deputy President. It's about the justice to Deputy President, justice to the people of Kenya, justice to each and every Kenyan who voted for the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker. And I want to finish by reading the book of Zechariah, chapter 8, verse 16, Mr. Speaker. I am preaching today, Mr. Speaker. And may it get to the souls, Mr. Speaker. Amen. Zechariah, Mr. Speaker, 8, verse 16. And even Glenn Washington, Mr. Speaker, and Morgan Heritage in Reggae, they say a man is not guilty until it is accused of being. Mr. Speaker, in Zechariah 8, verse 16, these are things that you are to do. Speak truth to each other and render true and sound judgment in courts. Senate, my colleagues, by the time you cast your vote, think about it. It is not about Regade. It is not about anybody else. It's about the Republic of Kenya. Our children, our nation, Mr. Speaker. I finish by saying...
Senator Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a reason why my colleagues call me bishop, others call me pastor. Mr. Speaker, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 19, from verse 18 to 19. It says that the judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness and has accused his brother falsely, then you, the judges, shall do to him as he had meant to do to his brother. so you shall purge the evil from your midst. Mr. Speaker, I did not know that I would be a senator in Kenya at such a time as this, being called upon to judge between the National Assembly and the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya through a motion brought here by one Honorable Mwengi Mutuse. But Mr. Speaker, here we are, and where duty calls, I will answer the call with courage and guided by a deep desire for that which is good for our nation. Mr. Speaker, I would have expected that the crumbling relationships within the Kenya Kwanza administration would perhaps have been handled within their PG or their NEC and resolved there. But because they have chosen this path, Mr. Speaker, they have made their bed, they must lie on it. Mr. Speaker, the mover of the impeachment motion must have a very dim view of the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. He comes to us with innuendos, falsehoods, sensational statements, and dropping of numbers without a shred of evidence. The Speaker, he begins his own illustration by saying sometimes in 2023. He goes on, the Speaker, to speak about at another forum in September 2024. Mr. Speaker, we are debating an impeachment motion of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. The least that these judges would have expected, the least that this country would have expected, is due diligence on the mover of the motion. Getting every event and every date right. In fact, going down to the minute, to the second. This is a serious issue, Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, because of time, I will say two things. One, let it be known to this House and to this country that those of us who subscribe to the ideals of the Azimio One Kenya Alliance are totally and grossly opposed to the idea of a government of shareholding. We don't subscribe to that idea. We believe in an all-inclusive government where every person and every region have their space in this country. But Mr. Speaker, when that matter was presented to us as an accusation, as a ground for impeachment of the Deputy President, during cross-examination and going through the evidence table before the Senate, it is clear to this House, it is clear to this country, that the idea of a government of shareholders is a foundational policy of the Kenya Kwanza administration. The signature for that policy is appended by none other than the party leader of that coalition, the President of the Republic of Kenya, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Chief Cabinet Secretary, and Mr. Speaker, I would dare say, don't drag the Speaker of the Senate to this because he's not part of this. Mr. Speaker, you cannot punish the Deputy President, the principal assistant to the President, for undertaking the role of being the assistant to the President. He is just expounding on a policy that his boss has signed and made public. Mr. Speaker, oh my goodness. Mr. Speaker, lastly, if you allow me,
Senator Metho.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. From the onset, allow me to say that I rise to oppose the motion of the removal by way of impeachment of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And Honorable Speaker, for the last 2 days, today and yesterday, we have been treated to a charade of allegations, accusations, which, in my opinion, have not been substantiated either by the mover of the motion, the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, or the advocates who he came with, or the advocates that are on record for the National Assembly. And Honorable Speaker, I am actually quite surprised that one of the advocates who appeared to represent the National Assembly tells us that the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, his was only to allege. This is not a trial. He didn't have to substantiate. He only needed to allege, and out of the allegation, then it should be carried, and we need to remove Honorable Deputy President from office. Honorable Speaker, looking at the evidence that the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse put in his motion, and the cross-examination that was here, the evidence that he brought to the House, he had 22 companies that he had listed. And when questions were running to him, what problem do you have with the company number one? I don't have a problem with it. Maybe you will have a problem in future. But the Deputy President must be removed from office. What do you have what problem do you have with company number two? I don't have a problem with it, but it might have a problem in future, and the Deputy President must be removed from office. And he kept telling us, I don't have a problem with the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one, but the Deputy President has to be removed from office. Honorable Speaker, I posed a question to the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse. He alleged that the Deputy President has a dairy farm in Nyandarua County. The fairest thing, or the least that anybody would do to such an accusation, you need to tell us where in Nyandarua is this land, at least remotely tell us what is the title number, so that even if, as the area senator, if I want to verify that indeed the Deputy President has a dairy farm in Nyandarua, there is something that I can look at. Honorable Speaker, he said, I don't know, but the Deputy President has to be removed because it is time to remove the Deputy President. On the question about Meru, where is the title number? I don't have it, but the Deputy President has to be removed from office. His wealth is 5.2 billion. Have you done a valuation? I don't have a valuation. I don't have a valuation. I don't mind. The Deputy President has to be removed from office. There is no evidence that I have in record. I don't mind. The other funnier question that we had, Honorable Speaker, is that the Deputy President has an allegation of insubordination. And the insubordination can only be sanctioned by the immediate supervisor of the Deputy President. The immediate supervisor of the Deputy President is the President. Is there any affidavit that the President has complained that there has been insubordination by his own deputy? Nothing. But the only thing that I would want to hold on to, on this particular allegation of the Deputy President having been alleged to have insubordinated his immediate supervisor. Since this motion of impeachment started, we have not had any comment from the President, either saying what has been alleged by Honorable Mwengi Mutuse is true or not true. So I want to believe that beyond the owner of the motion of the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, the President is the bigger owner, because he has not denied that this is there has been an insubordination. And my comment would be this: this divorce that the President is looking for, you shall get it, but it will be painful, it will be hurtful, it will be catastrophic, it will have casualties. At the final vote that will be casted today, we might be the first casualties. But the casualties of today are not necessarily the casualties of tomorrow. And out of the vote that shall be taken, I'm speaking to our partners in the coalition and the other people who are here from ODM and the other parties. This vote that you shall take today, it is not in vain that the senator for Nyandarua, it is not in vain that the senator for Kiambu, it is not in vain that the senator for Muranga, it is not in vain that the senator for Laikipia, it is not in vain that the senator for Kirinyaga, with strict instructions from the people who elected this government, have told them to come and oppose the motion that is on this floor of the House. Honorable Speaker, I'm being disrupted. The point that I wanted to make is, it is not in vain that we have been instructed not to sanction this divorce. But if it comes, we shall take it in our strides. I want to tell the people who are here, the vote that we shall cast here, we shall not put it in our minds. We shall put it in our hearts. The people of the region that I have mentioned are at their lowest. We are calling on the senators who are here. It is time to stand with us. Finally, this motion had to be processed in a haste. We had to try a man in hospital because the only crime that Rigathi Gachagua has committed is a political crime. So he had to be removed out of the way, whatever it will take, whether he's in hospital, whatever it will take, he has to get out of the way. That can only happen if it has the direct sanctioning of the President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto.
Senator Tom Ojenda.
Honorable Speaker, it is with a heavy heart that I stand in Senate today to comment on the motion and the 11 charges that have been preferred against the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. During today's session, when the advocate for the Deputy President made a presentation, I posed a question to the advocate. And the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, related to the share question which informs count one. Count one is on gross violation of Article 10.2, Article 73, Article 75, 129, 147, and 131 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is inconceivable that certain regions of this country, in view of the Deputy President, cannot and do not form part of the so-called, Mr. Speaker, sir, the shareholders in this country. To me, Mr. Speaker, sir, the shareholding question and paradigm that the Deputy President has so eloquently, for the longest time possible, stuck to since the election, is the lowest, Mr. Speaker, sir, that he has gone. It is the lowest, Mr. Speaker, sir, because this morning, the advocate was unable to respond to the shareholding percentage for Kisumu County, Siaya County, Migori and Homa Bay counties, Mombasa County, and many other counties, including West Pokot, Trans Nzoia, Mandera, Marsabit, and Vihiga counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, the shareholding question violates expressly Article 10.2b of the Constitution.
Senator Tabitha Karanja. You have 2 more minutes. It's a system flow.
Mr. Speaker, I thought that was rigging. I thought that was rigging. But Mr. Speaker, sir, may I move to just conclude, to move? Mr. Speaker, sir, the presidency of this country, and we have moved under Articles 145 to 155 of the Constitution to impeach the Honorable Deputy President. The embodiment of the role of the President at Article 131 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir, the President is the embodiment of this country. He represents this country, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, any coalition agreements of any nature must crumble in the face of Article 131 upon election. The President and his deputy, who is his assistant, must, Mr. Speaker, sir, embrace the principles of inclusivity and Article 10 and be the face and represent all the people of this country. Submissions made by councils for the National Assembly to the effect, Mr. Speaker, sir, that any instrument, be it a political agreement deposited with the registrar, Mr. Speaker, sir, that violates this principle of necessity, Mr. Speaker, sir, are unconstitutional. And it is in the face, Mr. Speaker, sir, of this first count that I will vote in favor of the impeachment of the Deputy President. Mr. Speaker, the other counts that are set out and that relate to violation of the principles of national cohesion, Mr. Speaker, sir, have been proven by the submissions made before this House this afternoon. Violation of Article 147 and 152 of the Constitution have been proved as set out in the charges framed by the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, let me say this, that this country must pull together in one direction. And that direction, if the President, Mr. Speaker, sir, and the Deputy cannot work together, then the interests of this nation cannot be safeguarded by allowing the Deputy President to continue being in office if his ideals are clearly in contravention or oppose the ideals that are held by the President of this country. We must support His Excellency President Ruto to run this country in a coordinated manner that Mr. Speaker, sir, brings together all the citizens of this country in a manner that coalesces all the 45.
Senator Tabitha Karanja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for also giving me this opportunity. And I want to take this opportunity and convey my pole to the Deputy President, and we wish him a quick recovery. The impeachment process is always very tedious and very tiring. Going through what His Excellency, the Deputy President, has gone through is not anything that you'd wish your relative or yourself to go through. So we tell him pole, and we wish him a quick recovery. Would have wished if he was here, at least when the senators are talking, he can represent himself. But unfortunately, the procedure must go on because we are time-bound. This leadership, we must make decisions for the people of Kenya. As myself, Tabitha Karanja, the Senator of Nakuru County, I pray to God to give me wisdom to make the right decision for my people. I represent a county that is a home for 42 tribes. Nakuru represents Kenya. Meaning, I must make the right decision to ensure that there is peace in our county. But I want my Nakuru people to trust me, Nakuru people, the people I represent, that I will make the right decision for them. When you look at the economic front, we all know the people who lead the economy of this country. Let's say the manufacturing, the hotels, insurances, the finance institutions. Unfortunately, I also come from that world. I came from the business world. The people driving this economy, all what they want is to ensure that there's stability in this country. So that there's stability that can guarantee conducive environment for them to do business. The deputy position, the deputy president's position, or even the deputy governor's position is a position that we need to think about. If you look, it has a history that every deputy president is unlikely that they survive. But we need to have the firing and hiring to be given to the same person that hires. Rather than having those people bringing, after firing, they want to fire, they bring them to the floor of the Senate. I wish we can go back to the Moi regime, where they used to be sacked and nothing changes. You hire as another one tomorrow, the following morning. Fortunately, the political formation in this country have representation from different communities. I know we are always asking where we are, but when the boss says he doesn't want the person that is hired, a manager, it is very, very hard to say that you can save that person Because even if you save him, where is he going to work? He may even find the offices are locked. So I think he make the right decision to ensure that this country moves, because all what we are looking for is stability of this country. And I know when I'm in this floor, if we're unlikely that we don't save the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya, the one we have, that deputy president came from one community. I just pray that that position will be returned to the same community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Asante.
Senator Okoit Omtata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand here not to defend a good man. It's not important whether His Excellency the DP is a good man or a bad man. I stand here to defend the oath of office that I took to defend the Constitution of Kenya. And that includes giving the devil his due. When the people of Kenya, during public participation, were screaming Kufa Makanga, Kufa Ndereba, they were opposing selective prosecution. They said if Parliament has held people accountable, it should not be selective. And I stand here to look at whether this House has complied with the Constitution. Article 150, Clause 2, on the removal of the Deputy President. The grounds for impeachment are set out in Article 145. And pursuant to Article 145, it is purely a political process, but bound by law, especially Article 25, Clause C, which requires that somebody is given a fair hearing. So the removal of the president by impeachment on any ground under Article 145 is a grave matter that involves overturning the sovereign will of the people as expressed in a democratic election. Even more profoundly, it means that the person so removed is prohibited for life from enjoying the rights under Article 38, Clause 3, Paragraph C, to be elected and hold office, to vie for, be elected and hold office. So the constitutional bar that must be cleared for the removal of the president from office is high. The Constitution requires that the removal must be well-founded in law, and that's why it prescribes the thresholds. And it must be objective. It is not a simple matter of numbers in the National Assembly and in the Senate. An impeachment is not a vote of no confidence. We must distinguish that. A vote of no confidence is a simple matter with no standards. It's just a political thing that you make, and somebody resigns from office, but he can come back and get to office again. This is an impeachment. So, Article 150, Clause 2 provides that to remove the deputy president, the provisions of Article 144 and 145 relating to the removal of the president, the deputy president, of the president shall apply with the necessary modifications to the removal of the deputy president. The Constitution does not anticipate a situation whereby we apply Article 145 on the removal of the deputy president without modifying it. The phrase is, shall apply with necessary modifications. What modifications has this House made, or the National Assembly made, or Parliament as a collective made to Article 145 before applying it to the Deputy President? Can we impeach the Deputy President using the standard for impeaching the President, when we know very well that the President is immune to prosecution? And therefore, the certain standards that apply to him won't apply to the Deputy President. So given that the Deputy President has not enjoyed those immunities, how
are we protecting him How are we ensuring that this process is constitutional? It's my submission there's a total failure on Parliament
To have proceeded to impeach the deputy president without making the necessary modifications to Article 145. And you have seen the potholes we have fallen into. It's okay for the president because the president is immune from judicial processes. But is it okay that the deputy president should be prosecuted using the same standard used for the president? And the drafters of the Constitution.
Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to time so that I don't lose my apologies. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the counsel for the Deputy President had really spent a lot of time in trying to bring out non-issues, leaving out the critical substance of the case against the Deputy President. And as I was seated here, I was honestly hoping I'll get an opportunity to get some clarification from the Deputy President. And unfortunately, that never happened. But since we are here and the public are watching, there are issues that need to be responded to. On the issue of serious allegation that is to do with the proceeds of crime and anti-money laundering, in the affidavit of the president, the deputy president himself acknowledged that Christo Company belongs to him. And he also further acknowledged that he has transferred Christo Company to his sons. And he went further to acknowledge in his own sworn affidavit that he has borrowed 600 million shilling in order to purchase Outspan Hotel from Abadeas. But in the evidence that is filed, that is before us, he only provided a letter of offer from a bank and resolution of the company. But he failed to provide, and all of us understand the loan process and how tedious it is. The deputy president failed, and if you are accused and you are threatened to be removed from the office of the deputy president, I believe that the least that was expected of the deputy president and his legal team is to, get with clarity a closed loop by providing the evidence that is required. For example, there is no provision in that in the evidence and that is filed before us of what happened after an offer was made. Normally it is followed by an agreement, a loan agreement. That evidence of loan agreement has not been filed. It is followed by a collateral document that was used. And, the need to get the collateral document through the legal perfection in terms of valuation report of that asset itself. He has not provided the charge document that indicates that that loan has been charged. In the evidence that is filed, he has not provided evidence of the fact that there is money credited to Christo account. And he has not further provided evidence of money leaving Christo account to go to Abadeas for acquisition of Outspan. And the legal counsel expects, by concentrating on non-issues with the petitioner, that these issues will be swept under the carpet. The other issue that I need to bring out, yesterday we were shown videos. The videos indicated utterances of the president in Muranga, where the president made a statement in trying to validate the statement of shareholding and the country being a company. They showed the president making a statement of nyinyi mumepata share yenu. But that was a statement of inclusivity in context, as opposed to the deputy president's statement everywhere he has gone, that is, assertive utterance of exclusivity within the population in this republic. Mr. Speaker, sir, Article 145 of the Constitution and 146 2A indicates that should the unforeseen eventuality happen, where the president ceases to be, God forbid, the deputy president takes over to finish the term of that presidency. The question I kept on asking myself, can this deputy president, can I really call this deputy president my president in the context of this division that has been ongoing? Mr. Speaker, sir, when you are the second in command in the country and you sit,
Senator Karungo. Senator Karungo.
No, I want to speak from the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to oppose this motion. I stand to oppose, and I'll start from where I left by saying that children deserve the most honest and thoughtful answers. And allow me, when I give my point, to talk to my children and the children of patriots of this country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, cutting off the neck does not cure headache, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is one thing to condemn a healthy person and another to condemn someone who is sick or bedridden. Today, we were told the Deputy President fell ill, and he requested for time for us to give him an opportunity so that we can hear him. But that opportunity was not granted because we're in a hurry, and yes, I think we are. I don't know to where. Mr. Speaker, this is an impeachment in absentia. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, without contradiction, that probably it is a flawed process, Mr. Speaker. And for some reason or at some point, I was not able even to know who we are impeaching. Is it the Deputy President or the Governor of Siaya, Mr. Speaker? Why am I saying that? Because our standing orders, Standing Order 81 and Standing Order 80, says when a governor should appear before us. And we saw a governor standing there, Mr. Speaker. So sometimes I was asking myself, maybe the governor impeached himself by just appearing to us, Mr. Speaker. And I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, when you listen to Mr. Mutuse, the main witness, when we ask him questions, he was saying this is just a prima facie, prima facie, prima facie. I'm not a lawyer. I Googled, and it says, prima facie says on first sight. So we are impeaching the Deputy President on allegation of at first sight. Mr. Speaker, we don't even love at first sight nowadays. But we have made the process of impeaching a Deputy President so easy than kicking out a nagging boyfriend or a nagging girlfriend. So I stand here from Kiambu saying that, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to impeach the Deputy President because listening to the accusation here, they are not enough. They do not meet the threshold of removing somebody from the office. You ask Mutuse here, you heard it. Mr. Mutuse, tell us. He says, I was not in an investigation journey. Mr. Mutuse, I just imagined. Mr. Mutuse, I don't know. Mr. Mutuse, I believe. Mr. Mutuse, Senate, believe me. Even if you don't believe me in one occasion or in one ground, just take one, the one that you love, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's sad that my brother, a person from my area or my region, the Deputy President of this country is being impeached. And I want to talk to the majority leader, person I really respect, and also the senator for Bomet, Mr. Sigei. When we hope to save a brother, remember us when we ask you to save our brother, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude on this issue, Mr. Speaker, he who assesses the integrity of others must exemplify an even higher standard of integrity on himself. I want to ask you members, please, as I go down to write your names or the sins on the ground, and I'm not calling myself Jesus, ask yourself, would you be the first one to throw the stone on the deputy president? And Mr. Speaker, I am going to leave this by saying I'm going to vote on all 11 counts. No, 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 no. I'm going to vote no. And I'm going to leave you with one quote I've read from a member of parliament from Gatondo North, who has said, Mr. Speaker, and I read, the dog is not sick, it's just afraid, facing its last 2 hours of power forever, Mr. Speaker. Those are the MPs who kicked out the deputy president. They are now calling him a dog. Maybe even this motion, Mr. Speaker, was brought by some people who are suffering from mental issues, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to say that because how do you call a deputy president is a dog and he's not sick and he's only waiting to get out of power for 2 hours? I ask you, brothers, please do not play along the galleries. Respect the deputy president, respect the people of Murima, and I leave you with Exodus 19, verse 12, Mr. Speaker. We were told if you touch a widow, you die. It says if you touch the mountain, you die. I vote no.
Senator Sifuna. Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, let me join you and the others who have sent their sympathies to His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. We wish him a quick recovery so that he can come back. Honorable Speaker, I think it is a very unfair accusation that we are impeaching somebody whilst in hospital. It has been said here, Honorable Speaker, that nobody can predict when you can be taken ill. It can happen to any one of us. And therefore, we did not plan that the Deputy President would not be here to also be able to present his case. And as Senator Roba has said, many people were in fact waiting to also get some clarifications from some of the pronouncements that have come from the Deputy President. Honorable Speaker, I want to also thank the parties that have taken time to appear before us, the case by the National Assembly, and of course the very able representation of the Deputy President. Honorable Speaker, it is clear that the case by the National Assembly is not perfect. But I have agonized over some of the issues that have been raised by the National Assembly. And Honorable Speaker, allow me to begin with ground one, where the Deputy President is accused of violation of Articles 27(4), which, Honorable Speaker, makes it unconstitutional for you to discriminate on, among other grounds, Honorable Speaker, on the grounds of belief. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, there is also an express provision under Article 73 on the same and Article 33(3)(d) that specifically deals with speech, Honorable Speaker, that constitutes advocacy for hatred on the basis of discrimination. Honorable Speaker, yesterday when I put this question to the legal team of the Deputy President, I was expecting a proper explanation, but of course, you all saw that they chose to throw snide remarks.
Senator Gataya and Senator Tabitha.
Please pause my time.
When Senator Tabitha, you're speaking,
Pause my time.
senators
Please.
give you a pin drop silence. The same must be extended to the senator for Nairobi City. Sit down, Senator Mofire. Proceed.
So, Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, yesterday when I put this question seeking clarification to the defense team, they chose instead to make snide remarks about appointments that have been made recently of members of my party, ODM. Honorable Speaker, I have agonized about some of the things that the Deputy President has said. In fact, in my entire time as an elected leader, I've met the Deputy President only once, and this is the second occasion when he was in the House. And both of them, honestly, were very sad events. The first one was a funeral, and these proceedings can also be likened to a political death if the House decides to impeach him. But Honorable Speaker, on that occasion, I did tell him to his face my position on some of the utterances that have come from him, that in fact, I strongly objected to those pronouncements. His legal team sought to hide behind these coalition agreements. I have agonized over what to do with an agreement, Honorable Speaker, that ousts the mandate of constitutional bodies. For instance, Honorable Speaker, you are told that in the agreement, positions that especially are essentially are supposed to be available to all Kenyans through advertisement by the Public Service Commission, like permanent secretaries, have already been dished out. So what am I supposed to do with a contract that ousts the mandate of the PSC, a constitutional body? What am I supposed to do with a contract that ousts the mandate of this House, Honorable Speaker? For instance, to vote for the person who sits in the chair that you sit in. And if memory serves me right, Honorable Speaker, members who are not signatories to the coalition agreement of Kenya Kwanza, in fact, participated in voting for you to become the Speaker. And many of them were members of my political party, ODM, although, of course, I was not one of them. Honorable Speaker, there is a position in law about what to do with illegal and unconscionable contracts. I feel that the Deputy President wasted an opportunity to give clarification on his pronouncements that, Honorable Speaker, he chooses to hide behind a contract that I consider unconstitutional is something that I have agonized over. Honorable Speaker, one of the questions that was posed to him is what, I remember a discussion about which is what are the strongholds of ANC and Ford Kenya. And somebody said that it is Western Kenya. Honorable Speaker, as SG of ODM, I know for a fact that Busia County is an ODM county. In fact, if you look at the statistics at the Register of Political Parties, the county with the highest membership in ODM is not Homa Bay or Siaya. It is actually Busia County. So the question I'm being asked by my members from Busia is, Honorable Speaker, if a member of ODM who resides in Busia wanted to be a permanent secretary, does he take his application to the local Ford Kenya office so that he can access the 30% for Western Kenya? And that is the agony, Honorable Speaker, that people are going through. Honorable Speaker, there was also the conversation around the public attacks on a judge. As a lawyer, as an advocate of the High Court, sworn to defend the Constitution, I agonize over what I'm supposed to do with public attacks on judicial officers, Honorable Speaker, people that I appear before seeking justice for my clients. Honorable Speaker, we have a discussion around also attacks on intelligence institutions in our country and the Director General of the Intelligence. Honorable Speaker, it was argued here that in fact, as a member of the National Security Council, the Deputy Speaker has a forum, the Deputy President has a forum to bring up
Senator Karen Nyamu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, none of us is enjoying these proceedings of an impeachment motion against the Deputy President, and particularly those of us from the government side, the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And for obvious reasons, Mr. Speaker, because he has been our leader, we have been in the trenches with him, fighting for this government. And so it has come to this, and I can assure you we are not particularly very excited about it. I personally have interacted with him on numerous occasions. If you look in the internet, Mr. Speaker, you will see photos of me dancing with the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker. I have followed these proceedings very keenly. All the 11 counts, one that the gross violations of the Constitution, Article 10(2), the one that talks about the conduct of public officials, including the Deputy President, the one that talks about him being a principal assistant of the President and an extension of the presidency, Article 147, that talks about his insubordination, and one that Sifuna has talked about, Article 160, that deals with undermining public institutions, and particularly the judges, Mr. Speaker. I have been born and grown up in Nairobi County, in Eastlands particularly. And where I come from, when we grow up, we are not even aware of each other's tribe. our neighbor could be from any other tribe. And so when I hear the Deputy President talking and allocating shares to citizens, I am aware that he's excluding more than half the population of Nairobians from service delivery, the same people that me and Sifuna are always here fighting for, every day, for allocations and for services, Mr. Speaker. And as if that was not enough, he was in the CBD the other day, addressing Nairobians in the Kikuyu language, assuming that all Marikiti traders are Kikuyus. Mr. Speaker, nothing can be further from the truth. And sowing seeds of tribalism in Nairobi is very, very dangerous. If you have seen the slum setup, where people live together, all tribes together, I do not want to imagine if you sensitize these people and make them aware of their tribes and their lack of shares in their own country, Mr. Speaker. And finally, in future, I want to call upon presidential candidates to make it a very critical attribute of their running mates to have political maturity and to have a national outlook, Mr. Speaker. Because to some extent, we want to put some blame on the president, because we are wondering what he looked at when he picked his running mates. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, as I make my comments on this motion, I'd like to wish the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Rigathi Gachagua, quick recovery. He is still the President of the Republic of Kenya as at 9:19 p.m. on the 17th of October until any decision is made. He's still the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. We pray that God gives him the strength and God gives him good health to continue pursuing that responsibility. Mr. Speaker, the Council for County Assembly began his opening statement and his National Assembly, that is the Venerable James Orengo, with a quote from Scripture. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to go to Scripture. And this time I will go to the book of John. In the book of John, chapter 8, we get the story of the adulterous woman. Mr. Speaker, Jesus Christ is teaching his disciples at the temple early in the morning, and the scribes and the Pharisees early in the morning drag a woman to his presence and say that this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. The Bible says that she has been caught, and I quote, in the very act of adultery. Mr. Speaker, what surprises me in this passage is that the woman who was caught in the very act of adultery has been produced, but the man who contributed to the adultery was not brought before Jesus Christ in the temple. Mr. Speaker, we have a man who has been brought before us for impeachment. We have been told that he's been a political adulterer. We have been told that he has grossly violated the Constitution and the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, adultery takes two. It takes two to tango. Like that woman in the book of John, I don't know whether they went for the men who cajoled her, who seduced her, who connived with her, and who paid her for the act of adultery. Mr. Speaker, in this Republic of Kenya, we must drain the swamp of adultery. And today, just like back in the days when the law of Moses required that a woman who had been convicted or accused of adultery ought to be stoned to death. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, it looks like the same punishment was not prescribed for men. It was just for women to be stoned to death, and yet it takes a man for a woman to commit adultery. Tonight, because the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya is just like the law of Moses. It says if you are found guilty of political adultery, you should be stoned to political death. It is called impeachment. You are sent into political purgatory for 10 years. You cannot run for office. Mr. Speaker, we must deal with the law as is. The law as is requires us that the woman or the man accused of adultery must be stoned to death in this chamber. That is the law as it is. But Mr. Speaker, we must make sure that we bring those other men and women who commit and who encourage people to go into adultery so that they also face the same sentence and they also face the same judgment. Mr. Speaker, I am convinced that political adultery has been committed in the case before us. There has been a conversation about a dubious shareholding structure of the Republic of Kenya. If the Republic of Kenya was a corporation, as we have been told, or if it was a political party, then we would have 56 million equal shareholders from Moyale to Vanga, from Nyatike to Nyandiwa, from Bumala to Malaba. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be restricted to a geographical entity called a mountain. Mr. Speaker, I am convinced that political adultery has been committed in the intimidation and threats to judicial officers. I am convinced that political adultery has been committed in public attacks on our intelligence service. Mr. Speaker, where I come from, if you find your father naked, you don't proclaim his nakedness, you cover him. And we cannot then proclaim the nakedness of our intelligence service. Mr. Speaker, I am convinced that the Deputy Speaker has committed political adultery. Sorry, the Deputy President has committed... I am sorry, Deputy Speaker, has committed political adultery. And Mr. Speaker, for...
Your time is up. Your time is up, Senator Murango.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika. Kwanza ningetaka kumwombea afueni haraka naibu wa rais. Alafu niseme hivi. Mstahiki Spika, fisi anapotaka kula mtoto mwanawe husema kwamba ananuka kama mbuzi. Mstahiki Spika, mashtaka iliyo mbele yetu leo ni dhahiri shahiri ya kwamba ni fisi anayetaka kula mwanawe. Mstahiki Spika, wakati Mheshimiwa Karungu Wadhangu alikuwa anaongea hapa leo na kuambia ombe msamaha, alikuwa amemwambia naibu mkurugenzi mkuu wa idara ya jinai kwamba anapojibu ajibu na wanao. Mstahiki Spika, mashtaka ambayo imekuwa hapa, kampuni zote zimekuwa hapa, zilikuwa nyingi, zilikuwa za watoto wake Rigathi Gachagua. Ama kweli chambilecho mkuki kwa nguruwe, kwa binadamu mchungu. Kwa sababu Mstahiki Spika, hakuwezi kuwa na umbaguzi wa wanawe naibu rais, lakini kusiwe wale wengine wanapewa heshima tofauti na hiyo. Mstahiki Spika, mimi nimetoka Kirinyaga na najua mashtaka yote ambayo yako hapo 11. Kuna jambo moja ambalo mpaka ufanye kama utadhirisha mashtaka, na ni ushiriki wa umma ambao tuko na ushahidi mbele yetu. Mstahiki Spika, katika ushiriki wa umma ambao tuko na mbele yetu, isipokuwa picha za maofisi za CDF, alafu na takwimu ambazo zimetoka katika bunge la kitaifa, ambalo wale wote ambao walikuwa wametia sahihi kumondoa naibu ya rais ndio walioongoza katika ushiriki wa umma. Mstahiki Spika, ningeuliza itakuwaje, itawezekanaje mtu ambaye ametia sahihi kumondoa naibu wa rais halafu anaongoza katika ushiriki wa umma? Mbuzi atapata haki wapi katika mahakama ya fisi? Mstahiki Spika. Mstahiki Spika, ningetaka niseme ya kwamba ni rais kuangalia mashtaka na kuyaona kama inafaa kwa naibu wa rais ambaye ako hospitali. Najua ya kwamba naweza kuwa nimesimama hapa napoteza kuni nikichemsha mawe. Najua ya hivi. Lakini fisi alisema siku moja, hata aliambia mawe siku moja, hata kama hujaongea umesikia chenye nimesema. Mstahiki Spika, katika mashtaka yaliyo hapa, na sisi tunafaa kuongozwa na ushahidi, sio riwaya, sio hekaya za mbunwasi, sio fasihi. Mstahiki Spika, lakini tunazo hapa Mstahiki Spika, zote ni hekaya za mbunwasi. Hakuna ushahidi wote ambao tumepewa mbele yetu, lakini siwezi kusimama hapa halafu niweze kumhukumu naibu wa rais, kwa sababu pia katika kitabu ya Kolosai 3 mstari wa 13 inasema ukihukumu wengine wa hukumu venye wewe utataka kuhukumiwa. Sasa mstahiki Spika, itakuanje kwamba walioorodhesha mashtaka yaliyo hapa na kosa kuleta ushahidi tunafaa tuamini leo? Ni chuki ama ni uchungu gani ambao wako nao na naibu wa rais? Mstahiki Spika, unajua akuchukiae huwa anakuambia unamtifuria vumbi hata wakati unaogelea. Mstahiki Spika, mahali nilikotoka mimi nataka kitu ya kwanza kufanya ni kuwakilisha watu wangu, na waliniambia kwamba ushiriki wa umma ambao uko hapa hawakuhusishwa vilivyo, kwa sababu walioenda kule mashinani kufanya ushiriki wa umma walienda kufanya ushiriki wa umma wakijua matokeo yake, Mstahiki Spika. Na kwa hivyo mimi nimeambiwa na watu wangu kutoka Kirinyaga yale mashtaka yote ambayo yamewekwa hapo, na kwa sababu tumekuchagua wewe uende pale utuwakilishe, tafadhali ukienda yote usikumbalie na hata moja. Mstahiki Spika, Mswahili usema lilompata peku na ungo ni lilo. Mstahiki Spika, wewe ni Mswahili, unajua kwamba ungo ni uteo ambao ni mpya, peku ni uteo, ungo ni uteo ambao ni mpya, peku ni uteo ambao unapepetea ambao ni mzee. Namwambia siku ya leo maseneta tukimhukumu naibu ya rais, yanayompata leo hata nyinyi mjue siku moja inaweza kuja ikampata, na ambaye atachukua msumari wa kwanza kumpigilia naibu wa rais, ningeomba kwamba asiwe ni mtu kutoka mlima. Huyu ni ndugu yetu, na kwa hivyo tunapokuja kumsurubisha katika msarambani, afadhali tuangalie akisurumbiwa, lakini mmoja wetu asichukue nyundo na msumari na nyundo kwenda kumsurumu. Mstahiki Spika, najua ya kwamba kuna wale ambao wanaelekeza vingine visivyo bwana. Mswahili usema usiwe vitatange kuwatosa wengine ndemani. Kama uko na msimamo tayari, usije ukapeleka mwenzako katika huo msimamo wako. Tunafaa kuzingatia ushahidi, tunafaa kuangalia kwa haki, kama maombi yetu ambayo tuko nayo katika seneti kwamba tutaangalia kila kitu kwa haki na uaminifu. Asante sana Mstahiki Spika.
Now, honorable senators, we had a consensus to terminate at 9:30. But again, breathe in and out. But again, I'm asking with your consensus if we can push it for another half an hour so that we terminate at 10. Is that okay? You know, honorable senators, we have to vote for 11 counts individually. So we will do an extra half an hour, then we terminate. The Honorable Olekina, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this evening, let me disabuse this notion that an impeachment process is an attack of the mountain region. Mr. Speaker, an impeachment process is a vital process of holding public officers, state officers, accountable. Mr. Speaker, I've heard on various occasions from my colleagues, those who oppose this motion, that we are targeting the mountain. I beg to differ, and I do so with the following findings.
There is a lot of movement in the chamber,
Mr. Speaker.
Honorable senators, and Senator Lekina's. Let's take our seat, please. And let us hear the Honorable Senator in silence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me begin again by saying I want to disabuse this notion that an impeachment process is an attack of a region. It is not. It is a constitutional process that this House has been given the task to be able to hold public officers accountable. Today, we are discussing the impeachment of a deputy president. Tomorrow, we might be discussing the impeachment of a president. We have constantly debated impeachment of governors here. I've never heard at one given time when people come up and say we are targeting a particular community. We are not. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been entertained this afternoon or the last 2 days with the defense alleging that the shareholding utterances made by the Deputy President is that he was referring to the shareholding of a coalition agreement. And Mr. Speaker, we were demonstrated here that the Kenya Kwanza coalition agreed upon how they can be able to share different, positions in government. In fact, I thought they would say that the Speaker of this House was also negotiated. I believe when the Speaker of this House was proposed to be voted for, he was voted for by all the senators. And never have I seen the Speaker giving preference to the people of the coastal region. So, Mr. Speaker, I find I'm not convinced by the defense that the shareholding being uttered by the Deputy President is based on a coalition agreement. Mr. Speaker, the defense attempted to respond to the allegation on ground 8, whereby they say that the utterances of the Deputy Speaker violate Section 132 of the Penal Code. It is important for us to know what Section 132 of the Penal Code says. It actually makes it illegal to utter, print, or publish words or acts that brings into contempt the lawful authority of a public officer. The decision made by Justice Esther Maina in her capacity as a judge of the High Court is protected by the position that she holds. So it is a bit unsensical for the Deputy President to go out in public, instead of following the due process of the law, to be able to go out and appeal the decision of that judge. Until today, Mr. Speaker, the coercion which was used to be able to return the 200 million shillings back to the Deputy President, that money must go back to the public. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy President has got a forum. Article 240 of the Constitution puts him as one of the key members in the National Security Council. He has got a forum to be able to go out there and express his dissatisfaction with the NIS. When he calls a press conference and outright says that the Director General of the National Intelligence has completely brought that service into a halt, he was exposing the secrets of this country, and what he was doing is that he was actually saying that we have got no control. Mr. Speaker, if for anything, today I'll cast my vote based on various issues. One, on shareholding. Two, on the violation of Section 132 of the Penal Code. Three, on the issues of coercion. I listened to the gentleman from Kempsett this afternoon when he said that he had to sit for hours at ESCC to be able to come out with one billboard. One. He was called on the 11th. When the defense were trying to justify that, instead of actually reading the recommendation made by the Senate, they were going through the submissions of one of the witnesses who appeared before my Committee of Health. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm convinced.
Senator Seki. The senator was elected by the people of Kajiado.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I also want to put my voice to this motion of the proposal to removal of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, as a motion by Honorable Mutuse. I want to say that the grounds that has been put to this House from number 1 to number 11, Honorable Speaker, I thank the legal counsel of the Deputy President for interrogating the witnesses, more so Honorable Mutuse being the lead witness and the mover of the motion. Honorable Speaker, I want to put to this House that I am unable to see evidence that has been put in place for the 11 counts, 11 grounds in this motion. Honorable Mutuse was unable to demonstrate on issues that has been raised in this motion. Particularly, can go to 1 or 2, the motion or the counts 7 or charge 7, where the Deputy President was alleged to have a 5.2 billion within his assets within that small period of time. Honorable Speaker, I understand that this witness was not able to explain and demonstrate that the Honorable Deputy President got the 5.2 billion because of the contracts that he has done with the government. He wasn't able to demonstrate that this money, 5.2 billion, was received or was the Deputy President received because of this, from this company, from another company, or this other company. There was no evidence on this count. Honorable Speaker, the kind of impunity I've seen in the issue of listing 22 companies without evidence of what the track of the monies or funds that has been done or that has been used to demonstrate that these companies are doing business with government was not there. This is impunity of a high order. To bring 22 companies and you are unable, as a move of the motion, to explain that this company A, company 1 to company number 22 have received or got money from government or from government institutions. But you just put it on the motion and it becomes something to impeach the Deputy President. Honorable Speaker, we have seen where the Deputy President is alleged to have conspired with a company, Agrobrick Investment Limited, where the control of State House, as an accounting officer of the State House, signed the contract, and it is brought to the motion that this contract and this company is alleged to have been a company to remove the Deputy President. Honorable Speaker, this House this afternoon received a report from the legal counsel of the Deputy President that the Deputy President is sick. Now, we are ready.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia mswada wa kumbandua naibu wa rais kutoka katika ofisi yake ya naibu wa rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza pia mimi nijiunge na wenzangu kumtakia afueni ya haraka naibu wa rais, kwa sababu tulikuwa ni matarajio yetu kwamba jioni ya leo angekuwa hapa kujitetea kwa madai kadha wa kadha ambao ameletewa katika bunge hili ili kuweza kutakasa jina lake. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeweza kuangalia mashtaka yake 11, na baadhi ya mashtaka ambayo nimeona kuwa yamenigusa ni kwanza, ni shtaka la kwanza ambapo ni kusema kuwa Kenya ina wenye hisa, na kwake wenye hisa ni wale ambao walipigia kura Kenya Kwanza katika uchaguzi wa mwaka 2022. Mheshimiwa Spika, hiyo imebagua makabila zaidi ya 47 katika nchi yetu, na sisi ambao tutoka pwani, ambao kutoka mwanzo pwani ilikuwa si koloni ya Kenya, ilitupa mshtuko mkubwa kwa sababu tuniona kwamba tunazidi kutengwa katika mamlaka ya jamhuri yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, shtaka la pili ambalo limenibamba ni la kuhusu ukiukaji wa sheria, na hapa nitaangazia shtaka la pili na shtaka la 6 ambapo amekiuka sheria inayohusiana na uwiano katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, na vile vile pia kuleta makabila na jamii zote pamoja. Mheshimiwa Spika, la 3 ni ukosefu wa nidhamu, swala la ukosefu wa nidhamu katika kumshambulia hadharani mkurugenzi wa shirika la ujasusi nchini mwetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii ilitokea mnamo tarehe 26 mwezi wa 6 mwaka huu, ambapo naibu wa rais alikuwa Mombasa na akatoa taarifa ambazo zilihujumu usalama wa taifa, ambapo yeye kama naibu wa rais alikuwa na fursa ya kuweza kuzungumzia mambo haya katika serikali, na vile vile pia hatua za kurekebisha zikachukuliwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, tunapoangalia makosa yote haya ni kwamba haya yasingeweza kumfika naibu wa rais kwa sasa, kwa sababu masuala haya ambayo yameangaziwa hapa yaliangaziwa na Senator Sifuna alipoleta mswada wake wa kumkosoa naibu wa rais, lakini mswada ule ulikufa ndani ya bunge hili la Senate. Mheshimiwa Spika, masuala ya ukiukaji wa kiapo haya, Mheshimiwa Spika, hayana nguvu kwa sababu wakati alipokuwa anaapishwa siku ya kwanza aliapa viapo viwili. Kwa hivyo hatujui ni kiapo kipi ambacho alikikeuka wakati Mheshimiwa Muthusi alipokuja hapa na kuzungumzia masuala haya. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikimalizia nitamnukuu Senator Orengo aliposema kwamba katika bunge lililokwisha kwamba mapinduzi yanakula watoto wake. Kwa Kiingereza, revolutions eat their own children. Na hii tunaona kwamba mapinduzi yameanza kula watoto wa Kenya Kwanza, wakianza na mtoto mkubwa kabisa ambaye ni naibu wa rais. Kwa hivyo ni masuala ambayo yameendelea katika bunge hili. Bunge lililokwisha tuliona hapa Profesa Kindiki aliteta sana hapa, lakini vile vile mapinduzi yakamla. Kwa hivyo ni kwamba lazima tujenge siasa katika nchi yetu ambazo zitakuwa ni siasa za kusonga mbele. Tukichaguliwa kama viongozi, tuzungumze masuala ya kitaifa. Tusizungumze masuala ya vijijini mwetu, wakati sisi matarajio wa Kenya wote ni kwamba tunazungumzia masuala ya kitaifa. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, napongeza pia bunge hili la Senate kwa kuonesha ukakamavu na vile vile pia umahiri mkubwa wakati tumeweza kusikiza kesi ya naibu wa rais. Labda kwa siku za usoni tutapata pia fursa ya kusikiza kesi ya rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya katika bunge hili letu. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Oroba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to say that this is not about a relationship. It's not about a friendship that has deteriorated. I have been hearing people say, if it's about a relationship, if it's about a marriage that has broken, why don't they go back and make peace and come together? No, Mr. Speaker. These two individuals, His Excellency the President and the Deputy President, did not come together so that they can live happily ever after and have children, Mr. Speaker. They came together so that they could deliver development to the people of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. So this, what we have been doing here for hours and hours, it pains me when I hear people saying, you know, about adultery and relationships and what, and I'm wondering, no. We have been here because of 11 counts, Mr. Speaker. a very serious impeachment motion because of not 2, not 3, but 11 counts, Mr. Speaker. In my condition, I have had to sit here and go through all 11 counts to understand which one actually has been substantiated and which one holds water. So no, this is not about a relationship. And we should not expect that because they came together, they should now go and sit somewhere and make peace. Now, and you know, stop disturbing us. No, Mr. Speaker, 11 counts of an impeachment motion is something very serious, Mr. Speaker. And it's very unfortunate that of the 11 counts, about 4 counts, Mr. Speaker, were not even substantiated, Mr. Speaker. Very shocking. When you have a team of legal experts sitting down bringing 11 counts, at the very least, they should have even substantiated 9, Mr. Speaker. But 4 counts, ground 2, when you talk about undermining a cabinet decision, how did we not have the witness come here to speak so that we can be able to understand? Some of us, we don't sit in cabinets, and we need to understand what a cabinet decision is, how it is undermined. Mr. Speaker, the witness was not produced. We had another witness who did not come here in terms of undermining devolution. Governor Sakaja signed an affidavit, but then did not appear, Mr. Speaker. People must respect the Senate, because when we are sitting here to analyze 11 counts, Mr. Speaker, honestly, in all fairness, they should at least be substantiated to some level. However, Mr. Speaker, I have lived through the post-election violence of 2007, 2008, and it is very strange that 2007 I was also pregnant, Mr. Speaker. And when I remember, Mr. Speaker, the things that triggered the post-election violence, Mr. Speaker, in 2008 of January, it was such utterances such as Musiguze Mlima, Mr. Speaker. They started as a joke, and before you knew it, matatus were being stopped and people were being asked, get off the matatu and showcase your IDs, and arms and limbs were being chopped off, Mr. Speaker. So we might think it is a joke, this shareholding narrative, Mr. Speaker, but having lived through that post-election violence, and I remember very well, Mr. Speaker, that I even had to choose the people who are operating, you know, on me in 2008, because I was afraid, you know, as Kisses, we love everyone. People always think we are traitors because we welcome everyone. So at that time, the attack on us was from both sides, Mr. Speaker. And so therefore, I do not take this shareholding narrative as a light thing. I do not take this Musiguze Mlima as a light thing, Mr. Speaker, because I have been affected directly. And on that count, Mr. Speaker, I definitely have seen that it has been substantiated. We have seen the evidence, and we have even seen repeated utterances of causing divisiveness in this country, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say today, Mr. Speaker, this country is not about one person. It is not about William Ruto. It is not about Rigathi Gachagua. This country is about the 50 million Kenyans who have to live in peace and under the national unity, Mr. Speaker. And for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that on that shareholding narrative, I hold my ground, and I will definitely vote that he should be impeached.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me start by telling His Excellency, the Deputy President of this country, Pole Sana, and we wish you a quick recovery. 2, Mr. Speaker, I want to quote a scripture which has been quoted here, John 8:7. Jesus told the people who took that woman before him, whoever has no sin to be the first to take the stone and throw at that woman. And when he bent down, when he came up, there was none of them. All the men had gone, only the woman was standing there. And he told her, go in peace, your sins have been forgiven. Mr. Speaker, when I talk like this, I'm saying that the other day we had the Deputy President publicly ask for forgiveness. And the Bible in the book of Matthew 14, Matthew 6, verse 14 and 15, says that if we don't forgive men their sins, when they sin against us, our Heavenly Father will never forgive us our sins. And talking like this, Mr. Speaker, I want to say the mover of this motion, Honorable Mutuse, could not substantiate the allegations. He was asked questions, and people even outside on media are laughing and asking what kind of a lawyer is he, because he could not answer many of the questions, because I think he was not aware of what, of the motion. To me, it seemed like it was drafted by somebody else and he was given just to table it. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, even the last speech of the National Assembly, they said on impeachment, it is not necessary or important to substantiate every allegation and even to make sure that you have all the evidence of the allegations, because this is not like court. And I thought, as a Senate, we sit here as a court. And whatever ruling we give here is acceptable. And so I wonder why one would stand and say that they could not, it is not a must that they substantiate beyond reasonable doubt. I believe if we are impeaching a person, we should, all the accusations must be substantiated and beyond reasonable doubt, because that is one's career we are about maybe to ruin. And this person has a family. This person has a career. When I think of Waititu, when I think of Songo, for 10 good years, they cannot stand on any elective office. And I had...
Honorable Senators. Senator Methu, you are heard in silence. Senator Fernandi, you are heard in silence.
Thank you, Mr.
Extend
Speaker.
the same treatment to Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, it was just the other day, I had Majority Leader and many of us here say that Songo was impeached for no good reason. How do we reverse what we have already done on this, in this Senate? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, before we impeach anyone, we must substantiate all the charges and make sure that it is not something that we are going to eat back our words and start saying we did a mistake. Mr. Speaker, I stand here to say no to this motion.
Senator Kathuria Murungi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity also to make some comments, one or two comments on this important exercise. Mr. Speaker, many Kenyans are wondering why the Deputy President is being impeached. And they are saying if he is to be impeached, him and the President should be impeached at the same time. Mr. Speaker, the articles in the Constitution, our Constitution has given the National Assembly and the Senate this mandate to do this exercise of checks and balances to our public officers. And Mr. Speaker, Article 145, which we used this afternoon even to determine whether to proceed or not, is very elaborate on how to the process of impeaching the Deputy President or the President. So, Mr. Speaker, we are here because the Senate actually has been, on several occasions, we have brought deputy governors, and now the Deputy President. Mr. Speaker, kindly protect me from this, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, kindly protect me from some noise from behind.
Senator Fernandi.
So, Mr. Speaker, I was saying...
move to your seat, your normal seat.
I was trying to say that, Mr. Speaker...
It may be lonely, but please stick there. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this House has brought deputy governors, and now the Deputy President. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is a constitutional mandate. And therefore, I will ask Kenyans that they should bear with the Constitution. It is the Constitution which has brought us where we are. I want to thank the parties that were here for the last 2 days, the parties representing the Deputy President and the parties representing the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. All these senators have been sitting as judges for the last 2 days and nights. And Mr. Speaker, it is only that this is a court, like a high court. Only that judges in the high court or the courts do not discuss the cases that they handle, but they meet and discuss, and then they make the decision. And then the decision is led by maybe the president of the court. But because now we make a decision through a vote, that is why, Mr. Speaker, we find ourselves here. And this evening, these juries will make their decision in one or the other. And Mr. Speaker, what I request Kenyans from today, whatever decision will be made to maintain peace, love, and unity, as was envisaged since independence in 1963. Because, Mr. Speaker, where we are, a decision will be made by the Senate in one way or the other, either to impeach the Deputy President or to appoint, or not to impeach, I mean not to impeach, Mr. Speaker. And I want to talk to the people that represent the Meru community. I want to assure them that whatever decision their senator will make is for the best interest of the Meru people. And I want to assure them that their future will be bright, if not more bright, Mr. Speaker. And what they need is service delivery, not individuals. Whatever decision that I'll make is for their best interest, because they elected me to make some decisions. Some are soft decisions or hard decisions. But what they need at the end of the day, they will ask their senator for 5 years, what have you done for us? But as I finish, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage all of us in a verse from the Bible, Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18, which says that in every situation, no matter what the circumstances, be thankful and continually give thanks to God. For this is the will of God for you in Christ Jesus. So whatever you do, thank God. Whatever happens to you, thank God, because we always should give thanks to God. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Christo Lasige.
Speaker, the Parliament of Kenya has gone through a great deal in a very short amount of time, many firsts, and it is utterly painful for me to know that the world keeps seeing us time and time again under such lugubrious circumstances. However, Speaker, it has taught me many, many lessons, and it's also reminded me of many that I've known for several years, one of which I was taught by Tony Evans, which is, if all you see is what you see, then you don't see all there is to be seen. Speaker, I have never met the Deputy President. In fact, in the last 2 days, the first time we've ever shared any space together. And to be honest, I don't think that we have much in common. I personally feel like there is a lot to be desired in his leadership style, for me personally. However, instead of going to the Bible, I want to go instead into my own experience and draw some parallels. Mr. Speaker, of course, people know that I have glaucoma, and I've been fighting and battling it for several years of my life. And Speaker, when I first got my diagnosis when I was just a teenager in high school, I was told that it was imminent. There was no running away from my condition. And I didn't know at the time that I had anything that was going on. I was just going about my life, but inside of me and around me, there was a condition that was building up and building up and building up, and I had no idea what was going to happen in the future. Mr. Speaker, now I've been left blind, and I cannot see in front of me even when I put my hand in front of my face. Mr. Speaker, the parallels I draw with my life and the current hearing that we are sitting in today is that the Deputy President did not foresee this happening to him either. Mr. Speaker, I have also drawn parallels of feeling out of control, which I assume that he feels. Being given a diagnosis that seems imminent, that he cannot stop. Mr. Speaker, I also feel that he is probably feeling fear. That's what I've heard. Mr. Speaker, feeling betrayed, feeling angry. And I felt all those feelings because of a situation that I can draw parallels with in this hearing. And Mr. Speaker, I have been fighting and fighting, pleading and praying, trying everything in my power to mitigate, to stop, just like he has been doing in the last several weeks that this has been going on, Speaker. And it's funny that it's Blindness Awareness Month this month in October, because there are many lessons, like I said, that I have learned, and I wish that the public will also take from this experience. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the public understands that when they have their back to the wall, when they've been in any kind of battle, even when they feel isolated, there is something called golfer's elbow, which I learned. Golfer's elbow is the idea that, or is a condition that golfers usually have when they hold on to the grip of their club too tight for a long period of time, and they end up injuring their wrist all the way up to their elbow because they're holding on too tight to an outcome, too tightly. And I've learned that sometimes you just have to let that go. And I hope that the public can take that away from this situation. Mr. Speaker, we must move away from hegemony, the idea of being dominated by one group or a person or a company or a state, because we are a democratic republic, and we need to move away from such ideology, such utterances, such behavior, Mr. Speaker. However, in the 11 counts, I have seen many that have no evidence, and I've seen some that do have some evidence. But I have not been particularly given confidence by the witness-in-chief, the mover of this motion, when I saw him up on the stand, Mr. Speaker. Although none of us can relate to what it's like to being a deputy president in this room for sure, we can definitely relate to the lessons that I've just mentioned. Mr. Speaker, make decisions today that will not betray you tomorrow. That's one. I also want to share that even though you're in a battle, whatever that might be, financial, personal, medical, whatever it is that you're going through at the moment, and you feel like your back is on the wall and everything, all the odds are against you, remember that it gets better. You do better. You will experience better, and we will become better, Mr. Speaker. I will finish, and I hope that the senators will remember what I said to them yesterday from the Bible, Proverbs 17:15.
Senator Newton. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I think I cannot thank you more for affording me this opportunity at this late hour. Mr. Speaker, I stand right from the onset to say that I oppose this particular motion, Mr. Speaker, and I have reasons for doing so. Mr. Speaker, the key witness or the mover of the motion came before this House yesterday, Mr. Speaker. And although I'm not a lawyer, but I know that it is there in the rules of natural justice that whoever alleges must prove. The Honorable Mutuse was not able to prove any of the allegations or any of the grounds that he laid against His Excellency the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans were and are watching these proceedings. They were able to see the cross-examination and to hear the cross-examination of the Honorable Mutuse, Mr. Speaker. And I want to urge this House, Mr. Speaker, that if we want to uphold the dignity and the honor of this House, that Kenyans were and are still watching, you cannot impeach the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, on allegations, on grounds that were not able to, that the mover was not able to prove, Mr. Speaker. And that is what prompted the question, I think, by Senator Wambua, which later was asked by Senator Okia Omtata, which you were able to stand down because it had already been asked, whose motion was Mutuse's? Because it was not his motion. He had no proof of any or for any of the allegations, Mr. Speaker, and that is why this House in order for us to uphold, like I've said, the dignity and honor, we need to vote no to this motion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many that have spoken before me have talked about the woman, the adulterous woman that was caught in the Bible. Senator Kajwang put it even better, that they did not bring the man that she was caught in the act with. Mr. Speaker, we need to ask ourselves, how good are we? How clean are we? Are we qualified to throw the first stone, Mr. Speaker? I think that is the first question that we should ask ourselves. That as we judge the Deputy President, how good are we? How many mistakes, how many offenses have we ever committed? How many sins even have we ever committed? And God forgive us, and our fellow human beings also forgive us, Mr. Speaker. But the most moving thing, Mr. Speaker, is that we did not give the Deputy President an opportunity. I know, of course, the motion to defer this particular, to adjourn up to Saturday did not pass. But Mr. Speaker, under section 50 of our Constitution, Mr. Speaker, 50-0, Mr. Speaker, we need to give any person, 50-0, that is 50, Mr. Speaker, 2F, to be present and when being tried, unless the conduct of the accused person makes it impossible for the trial to proceed. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy President was taken ill, according to what the council reported to this House. And Mr. Speaker, we did not give him an opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I draw your attention also to our Constitution, Article 145, Clause 5. The President shall have the right to appear and, not or, and be represented before the special committee, Mr. Speaker. We did not give him that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, because I can see my time is wearing out, if not for anything, Mr. Speaker, I ask this House, you cannot condemn a sick person. Any one of us can get sick. I want to appeal to my colleagues, Mr. Speaker. Nobody chooses when to get sick and when to be in good health. We cannot afford to judge a person, to condemn a person when they are in hospital, Mr. Speaker. And so I want to appeal to the members of this House that if not for anything else, you consider that the Deputy President has been taken ill and show the necessary compassion. And Mr. Speaker, I want to my majority leader is here, and he made a statement that was very disturbing, that even those that are saying that it can bring division should.
Senator Mogene.
Mr. Speaker, sir, first on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of the great county of Nyamira, I want to send a message of quick recovery to His Excellency President Rigathi, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Mr. Speaker, the Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1, that there is a season for everything. There is a season to be born politically and a season to die politically. That's biblical. The Speaker, I've agonized. Mr. Speaker, I've gone through a lot of soul searching. Mr. Speaker, as I listened to the evidence that was tendered against, as I listened, Mr. Speaker.
Just pause the time for Senator Mogene. Let us allow Senator Mogene to be heard in total silence, please.
Speaker, as a lawyer and a person who witnessed the birth of the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker, I strongly believe, Mr. Speaker, that Kenya belongs to all the 42 plus tribes, Mr. Speaker. And what has disturbed me, Mr. Speaker, for the 2 days I've sat here, Mr. Speaker, what would happen to my community in Kisii and in Nyamira if we ran our government through this theory of shareholding. Mr. Speaker, as I speak tonight, Mr. Speaker, the people of the two counties of Omogusi, Nyamira and Kisii, are victims of that theory of shareholding. That community, Mr. Speaker, called Omogusi, has got no even a single PS serving in government, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we speak this evening, Mr. Speaker, the Omogusi people, Mr. Speaker, have been the biggest victims of this theory of shareholding. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution that we enacted in 2010, in Article 27, Mr. Speaker, clearly states that we should not discriminate, Mr. Speaker. I hope, Mr. Speaker, when I cast my vote tonight, I'll be sending a message from the people of Nyamira, Mr. Speaker, that a government is formed for all the tribes in the Republic of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I've agonized, Mr. Speaker, on the issues that have been brought in this motion, touching on the widow and the children of the late Governor for Nyeri, Gachagua. And Mr. Speaker, I wondered if adverse statements and inferences have been made touching on the conduct of the Deputy President against the widow of the former governor and the children of the late governor, the nephews of the Deputy President. Why, Mr. Speaker? I ask as a father, why, Mr. Speaker, did the widow and the children of the late Governor Gachagua swear an affidavit to dispel all the things that have been said against a scheme of swindling those children? Why, Mr. Speaker? Why didn't they swear an affidavit, Mr. Speaker? That has troubled me a lot. And as I cast my vote tonight, Mr. Speaker, I'll be casting my vote for those children who lost their mother, who lost their father, but who were not given an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to appear before this House and tell us, Mr. Speaker, that there has not been any wrongdoing from the Deputy President to those children. Count number 1, count number 8 is about the utterances that were made by the Deputy Speaker. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that the person who will occupy that coveted position of Deputy President will reflect on what John says in chapter 3, verse 5. Mr. Speaker, the Bible says that the tongue is a small part of the body, but the tongue is also fire, and it's a world of evil among parts of the body. If the Deputy President had checked his utterances, Mr. Speaker, perhaps we will not be having this motion this evening. So, as we vote tonight, Mr. Speaker, let's also learn. Let's also learn from what the tongue has done to Honorable Gachagua. I will vote, Mr. Speaker, where I'm convinced that allegations against the Deputy President have been proved. I reserve my vote to be cast at the right time.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the position of the Deputy President of Kenya is very high. It is a very high calling. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, as we make a decision on the Deputy President of Kenya, I want to remind him that of those to whom more is given, indeed, more is expected of them. And he should not feel that he is being victimized because, Mr. Speaker, the highest standard of this Constitution in 2013, by dint of lack of integrity, the Deputy Chief Justice, Nancy Barasa, lost her job merely because she pinched the nose of Kwamboka. The Deputy President indeed did worse than pinching the nose of somebody. Mr. Speaker, the Deputy President
seeing the allegations against him, I can't imagine that he moves around with the moninga of man of faith and truthful man. Mr. Speaker, if really we must talk about faith, may I remind the Deputy President of a man of faith, a man of letters called Bill Paul. Bill Paul said, man of faith, that integrity is like virginity. You lose it only once. And when you lose it, you can never get it back. The Deputy President has lost that virginity of leadership. Mr. Speaker, coming from a community that paid for the price of inflammatory speeches in Likoni, in Molo, and in Trans Nzoia, if I had time, I would discuss what some of my relatives went through, including Pastor Liai from Ichina village. Mr. Speaker, during the tribal clashes of 1992 and 1997. I would like to remind the Deputy President of the post-election violence of 2007, 2008. One of the reasons why we had to have this progressive constitution that will be removing him, hopefully, this evening from office. Mr. Speaker, even as we ask the Deputy President to leave office, we must insist that the DCI and the ESCC and other investigative institutions must pursue this matter beyond this vote. I have on mind, Mr. Speaker, the activities of the intricate web of companies up to 22, so to speak. The reason I believe young Mutuse could not bring all this, dear senators, colleagues, is because effort requires money, requires time to do all that research. Some of them you have to do clandestine for you to get information. I believe that if the Deputy President had taken the dog, we were going to completely undress him. We would have asked him to justify what activities each and every one of those companies was doing. It's part of the reason why he stepped down, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have evidence, which I don't wish to be part of the case, that as soon as the Deputy President's brother died, the wife went to the corporate branch of the cooperative bank and started crying there that the manager should stop the Deputy President from operating these accounts. Mr. Speaker, finally, the Deputy President must be investigated for the role.
Senator Eddy.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and I recognize the pressure of time. Mr. Speaker, I am here because of the kindness of the people of Migori County who sent me here that at such a time, Mr. Speaker, I need to be cautious of the Article 125 of the Constitution, which requires us as a House that in matters such as this, Mr. Speaker, we must behave like judges, because under Article 125 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, we sit as a High Court, Mr. Speaker. And in the words of Socrates, Mr. Speaker, a judge is required to listen courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, and definitely to decide impartially, Mr. Speaker. There were 11 charges, Mr. Speaker, that were put before us, Mr. Speaker, and they were put to us in the context of Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution 2010, Mr. Speaker, came in the backdrop of two very important historic moments in this country, Mr. Speaker, that I must reflect on, Mr. Speaker. Number one, Mr. Speaker, is the section paper number 10 of 1965, Mr. Speaker. That section paper number 10, Mr. Speaker, divided this country into those who are important and those who are not important. The language that was used then, Mr. Speaker, was the idea of Northern Frontier District, Mr. Speaker, that then discriminated upon some communities, Mr. Speaker, against others, Mr. Speaker. Number two, Mr. Speaker, in 2007, Mr. Speaker, this country was divided on the basis of ethnicity, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I rise to support this motion if my grounds, Mr. Speaker, after listening courteously and considering soberly, Mr. Speaker, are more than half of the charges, Mr. Speaker. And I find that ground 1, 5, and 6 on the utterances of the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, violate Article 91 of the Constitution and Article 232 of the Constitution. We cannot have political parties, Mr. Speaker, that are founded on the basis of ethnicity and dividing national resources on the basis of ethnicity, Mr. Speaker. Number two, Mr. Speaker, that would make the ground number 4, which actually also happened to be reason number 4 for why the Deputy President must leave office, Mr. Speaker, at the violation of Article 160 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, of undermining the judiciary, Mr. Speaker. There was an imminent threat to the judges there, Mr. Speaker. You realize that in my judgment, Mr. Speaker, I excuse ground number 8 on the basis of the fact that there was no proof that there was a petition that was not filed, Mr. Speaker. But on the threat, Mr. Speaker, I think that the Deputy President stands impeached, Mr. Speaker. Ground number 9, Mr. Speaker, on NIS, Mr. Speaker. We know that this country has faced serious terror attacks, Mr. Speaker. And the moment the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, showcases the secrecy of deficiency in our security infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, and you know that under Article 240, he has platforms to be able to express himself, Mr. Speaker, it is a violation of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, on ground number 11, Mr. Speaker, on bullying KEMSA official, Mr. Speaker, it has been proven here beyond reasonable doubt, Mr. Speaker, that the Deputy President is not a member of the company that was listed. He's not an employee of that company, Mr. Speaker, yet he goes ahead and makes calls on behalf of that company, Mr. Speaker. That is impeachable. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I must call the Council of the Deputy President to order, Mr. Speaker, especially Council Paul Muite, Mr. Speaker, for actually practicing law in deceit, Mr. Speaker. You cannot say that at the level of the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, he was okay in this house the entire time, and then when asked, you are saying you cannot be able to account for his whereabouts, and you know that the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, also must be able to be taken care of by the DG of Health, Mr. Speaker, who could have given us a document to be able to substantiate whether the Deputy President is sick, Mr. Speaker. While I say sorry to the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, I think this kind of deceit should also be tantamount to further impeachment, Mr. Speaker. I do therefore say that on ground 2, 3, 7, 8, and 10, they are not substantiated. But on ground 1, 5, 6, 4, 9, and 11, Mr. Speaker, this is a fight against tribalism that is done by one individual that then we must...
Senator Osotsi, unfortunately, you only have 4 minutes because we terminate at exactly 10:30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll be so quick. Mr. Speaker, when the Deputy President was here, I remembered the saying of a famous philosopher, 19th century, Lord Acton, who said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Mr. Speaker, a few of us here served with the Deputy President in the National Assembly. And when we were there in the National Assembly, the Deputy President was a very humble man, very simple, very social, and was rare to talk. But listening to the judges and having seen what has been happening around, this is not the same man. This is a different man. So indeed, I want to agree with this philosopher that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is, it may affect all of us here. So there is something we need to learn from what has happened today. Mr. Speaker, I also want to congratulate the members here for their decency and maturity in conducting a fair trial. Mr. Speaker, it is not true that the Deputy President has not been given a hearing. We had to adjourn this House for 2 hours to wait for the witness to come. He didn't come. And Mr. Speaker, you know that the tradition of this House, that sometimes we receive written submissions. We do that in our committees. We do that in public participation. So the members who are saying that he was not given a fair hearing is that is not true, because this House tried as much as possible to get the Deputy President to come. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said about various laws and articles of the Constitution that the Deputy President has violated. But one important article of the Constitution that runs through all the charges, Mr. Speaker, is Article 131 of the Constitution, which read together with Article 147, clearly says that the Deputy President is a symbol of national unity. That is not the case, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you go ahead, Article 131(2) says that the Deputy President, by dint of Article 147, should respect and uphold and safeguard the Constitution. That is not the case. The Deputy President should promote and enhance the unity of the nation. That is not the case. The Deputy President should promote respect for diversity of the people and communities in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, that is not the case. So if there is any piece of law that is going to send the Deputy President home, is clear violation of Article 131 of the Constitution, because the Deputy President is the principal assistant to the President, and therefore exercises powers of the President as per Article 131 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if there is one charge, because we have 11 charges, that is going to send the Deputy President home, it's charge number 1. I listened to the evidence that was brought here by his counsel. That evidence of the coalition agreement of Kenya Kwanza was not sufficient, was not convincing. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, the Deputy President conveniently hid for...
Your time is up. Majority Leader, you may now move to reply.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to hereby reply, having listened to the contributions of my colleagues on this very important motion on trial by impeachment of the Deputy President, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. I want to thank colleagues that have taken time to give their views, both in support and those opposing this motion, because that's how you grow a democracy, Mr. Speaker. We may not all have to agree on the same subject matter, Mr. Speaker, but the chance to even speak and say what you feel about an issue is an important attribute. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I agree with the contribution that was made by one of the advocates for the Assembly, that comparing what you're doing today with previously what used to happen, where in the 1 o'clock news, vice presidents will be changed without any notice. And the elaborate process, Mr. Speaker, that we have gone through up to this point is great for our country. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the National Assembly, the
team of the Deputy President, Mr. Speaker, that has presented us with information to help us make a fair judgment of this case. Mr. Speaker, I strongly disagree with those that hold the view that the Senate hasn't been as fair to the Deputy President as perhaps they would have expected. To the best of my knowledge, Mr. Speaker, I think as a House, we did the best that was within our means. We granted the opportunity, was given sufficient notice, Mr. Speaker. It is only in the unfortunate circumstance of this afternoon where he was taken ill, Mr. Speaker, and I'd wish to take this time to extend my message of goodwill to him and wish that he can quickly recover and get on with his other duties, Mr. Speaker, both as a human being and should, whichever way this vote goes, Mr. Speaker, because it's not in my hands, but in the hands of the 67 jury that are here, Mr. Speaker, that he shall continue to thrive. I wish him well, Mr. Speaker. Like I observed earlier, this is a friend, and friends wish each other well under all circumstances. Mr. Speaker, you know, just as a final thought, I thought about the journey of the Deputy President and the tribulations that have occurred to him as occurrence to either his conduct or utterances. And I'm reminded of a book I once read, Mr. Speaker, by Senegalese satirist Osman Sembene, a book called Hala, where, Mr. Speaker, a very rich businessman by the name El Haji looks and desires a beautiful young lady by the name Ngone, and finally takes her in as a third wife. Unfortunately, on the same night that he marries her, he develops erectile dysfunction, Mr. Speaker, and is not able to consummate the marriage. Sometimes in life, Mr. Speaker, when you fall down, you have to prepare to get down before you eventually can rise up, Mr. Speaker. I do hope, Mr. Speaker, that even in this particular process, the Deputy President will emerge stronger, better as a human being, as a leader, and that there can be better days ahead for him. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply and wish that our colleagues in this House make a decision in the best interest of the country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, honorable senators, these are the guidelines on how we're going to move forward. One, all honorable senators are eligible to cast their votes. Secondly, the threshold is 45 senators. So there ought to be 45 senators in the chamber. And we are going to vote for the charges separately. So we're going to vote 11 times. I now direct that the bell be rung for 2 minutes.
Good evening. These are live proceedings from the Senate chambers, and the senators are done debating the motion that was moved for the removal from office by impeachment. You're watching live pictures from the Senate, where debate has been concluded. Good evening. You are watching live pictures from the Senate chambers, and the senators are done debating the motion that was moved seeking the removal from office by impeachment the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and now they are preparing to take a vote on the 11 charges that were brought forward against the Deputy President. Charge 1, gross violation of Articles 10, Sub-Article 2A and B and C, Article 27, Sub-Article 4, Article 73, Sub-Article 1A and 2B, Article 75, Sub-Article 1C,
Clerk, has the bell stopped ringing? Sergeant at Arms, kindly close the doors and draw the bar. Clerk, can you do a head count to confirm that we have a minimum of 45 senators in the House? Order, honorable senators. Majority Leader, you may take your seat. Now, honorable senators, we are moving to division. I will first put the question. Voting shall be electronically, and we shall be voting on separate charges. So we're going to vote 11 times this evening. I'll proceed to put the question. honorable senators that are aware that the National Assembly on the 8th of October 2024 resolved, with the support of 282 members, being at least 2/3 of all members of the National Assembly, that pursuant to the provisions of Article 145(2), as read with Article 151(b) and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Order 65(2) of the National Assembly Standing Orders, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, be removed from office by impeachment on the grounds specified in the special motion. Whereas by a letter reference NA/DLP/TBO/MTS/2024 into brackets 25, dated the 8th of October 2024, and received in the office of the Speaker of the Senate on the 9th of October 2024, the Speaker of the National Assembly informed the Speaker of the Senate of the approval of the special motion by the National Assembly, and further forwarded to the Speaker of the Senate documents in evidence of the proceedings of the National Assembly. Further, whereas pursuant to Article 145, as read with Article 150, 1B and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Orders 78 and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate had the National Assembly on the grounds for the proposed removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. And further, whereas pursuant to Article 145, as read with Article 150, 1B and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Orders 78 and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate also had His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, on the grounds of his proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Now, therefore, pursuant to Article 145, as read with Article 150, 1B and 2 of the Constitution, and Standing Order 78 and 79 of the Senate Standing Orders, the Senate resolves to remove from office by impeachment His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, EGH, Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, on the following grounds. 1. Gross violation of Articles 10, 2A, B and C, 27(4), 73(1)A and 2B, 75(1)C and 129(2) of the Constitution, and Article 147(1) as read together with Article 131(2)C and D of the Constitution. 2. Gross violation of Article 147(1) and 152(1) of the Constitution by undermining the President and the Cabinet and the effective discharge of the national government's executive mandates. Number 3, gross violation of Article 62, 10(2)A, 174, 186(1), 189(1), and the fourth schedule to the Constitution by undermining devolution. Number 4, gross violation of Article 161 of the Constitution on the institutional and decisional independence of judges. Number 5, gross violation of Articles 3(1) and 148(5)A of the Constitution on the fidelity to the oath of office and allegiance. Number 6, serious reason to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes under Section 13(1)A and 62 of the National Cohesion and Integration Act. Number 7, serious reason to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed gross economic crimes under Sections 45(1), 46, 47(a)(3), and 48(1) of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and Sections 2, 3, 4, and 7 of the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act. Number 8, serious reasons to believe that His Excellency the Deputy President has committed crimes by continuously misleading members of the public through false, malicious, defensive, and insightful remarks that are contrary to the provisions of Section 132 of the Penal Code and Section 29 of the Leadership and Integrity Act. Number 9, gross misconduct that is incompatible with the high calling and dignified status of the office of the Deputy President and a member of the Cabinet and the National Security Council. His Excellency, the Deputy President has publicly attacked and undermined the work of the National Security Intelligence Service and its officers. Number 10, gross misconduct by openly or publicly in subordinating the president, who is the head of state and government. And number 11, gross misconduct by persistently bullying state and public officers. As I've already indicated, honorable senators, voting shall be done electronically. So at this juncture, I will ask honorable senators to pull your cards out of the delegate unit. Sergeant at Arms, kindly go around and pick all the unattended delegate cards. Sergeant at Arms, if you're done collecting the unattended cards, we're good. Now, honorable senators, you may log in back. As indicated earlier, we'll be casting our votes 11 times. So the vote you're going to cast at the moment is for charge allegation number 1, which is gross violation of Articles 10(2)(a), B, and C, 27(4). I had already read it out. So from this moment, it's beamed on the screens. So honorable senators, once you've logged in, you may now proceed to vote. Senator Tabitha Keroche, may you move to dispatch and get some assistance. We're now going to allegation number 2. It's been beamed on the screen. You may now vote. We shall now move to ground number 3, allegation number 3. Can you beam it? There we are. Honorable Senators, you may now proceed to vote on allegation number 3. We are now going to allegation number 4. Let it be beamed on the screen. Honorable
More Radio, 88.2 FM. We are in charge. More Radio, 88.2 FM. We are in charge. More Radio, 88.2 FM.